Hello, my name is Nessa McAlane and I am a journalist with a strong interest in regulation. I just wanted to talk today about a terrible example from the aviation industry, which is also an example for every other area of regulation. The regulators of the world find that they learn lessons from each other, whether they're operating in financial services or transport, construction, agriculture, nuclear power, and so on. Regulated businesses are those which are controlled by the government on the rules that they operate. Obviously, the health and safety rules for flying in planes. So what I want to talk about started in October 2018 when a Lion Air flight crashed in Indonesia 13 minutes after takeoff, killing all 189 of the passengers and crew. Then 4 months later, in March 2019, an Ethiopian Airlines flight crashed 6 minutes after takeoff in a village, also killing everyone on board, all 157 people. So a total of 346 people had died, and it turned out that they were all on the same type of model. The two planes were the same. They were revamped 737 Maxes, and this was a 50-year-old plane design. It had been revamped by Boeing to save costs. Several airlines were buying this model off Boeing, and they persuaded Boeing to keep using the same model because they felt it would cost them less when it came to training and retraining their pilots. But during the process of updating the model, 5 problems developed around a particular part of the flight control system. A new mechanism had been introduced in the few years before the revamp took place to deal with a wind-up turn. A wind-up turn is a banked high-speed turn of the plane when it nearly stalls and will then go into a downward spiral. And that's what happened in both these crashes. Obviously, the system was aimed at allowing that to happen and then taking it out of that manoeuvre before it stalled and went downwards. So what were the flaws? In both of these crashes, the sequence of events was triggered by the internal flight system delivering to itself a false signal, and then once that false signal had happened, a whole other sequence of events took place. And in both cases, every time that the pilots tried to counter the nose down movement that was happening, the system kept on kicking in again every 10 seconds, so they couldn't get the momentum to get up. The system was also, the third point, the system was also given unnecessary authority, and it could, so every time the pilots were trying to pull it up, the system was pushing it down. Boeing also had assumed that the pilots would realise that something was wrong and that they would act immediately, but the assumption was that they would act within 4 seconds, and there was actually a memo that went round saying that if a pilot delayed 10 seconds, that the results would be catastrophic. So Boeing knew about that, and it had it on its list of things to do, but it wasn't going to make this change until it was introduced some software updates in 2020. The fifth area, the fifth flaw was that there was a warning signal when this started to happen, the wind-up turn, but it was an optional extra, and neither of the two airlines that were involved had paid the extra cost to get the flashing light to alert the pilot. Then what underlying these issues, of course, was the fact that the Federal Aviation Administration, which is the regulator, they had outsourced most of their regulatory and analytical work and testing work to Boeing engineers themselves. And although some Boeing some parts of Boeing said that that was absolutely fine and they did everything correctly. There were others who complained that there was heavy pressure from them coming down from their managers, requiring them to certify the model as fit to fly. So lots of questions are raised by this. How safe is it for regulators to outsource parts of their regulation to the companies that they are regulating? To a certain degree, regulation really has to be a dialogue between regulators and companies, especially when you have areas of updates. Financial services is going through tremendously fast changes at the moment, and obviously in the aviation sector there were major changes going on there, but just between one model and the next one. Another question is, how can we find the right balance between keeping the costs of regulation down and maintaining safety? Because we can keep people safe, but we would probably spend so much money doing it that we could make the business uneconomic. Okay, thank you very much for listening.